Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like it may
Trying to
not
shake
really.
that stuff loose.
Yeah, it may not really work, but you're gonna do it anyway. It's almost like they can't. So Ian basically says that there's something that you can't say that happened, but then Enoch was like, "Oh yeah, no, but we cannot," in the Scottish thing. And I
Yeah,
thought
we
it was
can't
funny
do it.
that the Irish guy was, because they've got so closely related ties. And I just love it because Rafi has no idea what he says at one point, and he's just like, "That
Was that
was
even the
not."
language?
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was funny. How we find out that Captain Vandermeer commits suicide is that, they're all going, I don't know, we can't really talk about it. And then Emmett he like mimes it. Holy crap! And yeah, he just mimes like sticking a gun in his mouth or a phaser or whatever. Yikes. But Emil, the medical hologram, says that after all that happened, Rios had some sort of breakdown, and that's why he was basically forced out of Starfleet. Rafi's like, all what? What happened? And they're like, I don't know. Like, none of them can they all know up to a certain point, and one of them says it's like a ghost of a thought. It's just, and I'm like, I like that, because sometimes it's like when you're like, it's on the tip of my tongue, it's like, it's there, but you
just can't
grab
access it.
Yeah. I still can't get over Rafi just like being, was that even a language? So great, so great. And I just love how they're all sort of interacting and stuff, and like he did so well. I don't know if they had body doubles or whatever in places so that he'd know where to look at himself, to laugh at himself or smile or whatever, but it was so good for a TV show. So many TV shows. Yes, like so many TV shows are so good nowadays, and it's like, I know they spend a lot of money on it, but I mean, if you look, the nebulas that were at the beginning of this show were like so gorgeous. Beautiful. I just can't, like, sometimes shows you watch them and you're like, okay, yeah, it's pretty good CGI, but then it's like, it's not. I'm just speechless sometimes about how well done this show, how much time and money and like,
they definitely went to a lot of effort to make this
respect to
look
details.
Really good.
Yeah. Then we've got Agnes in sickbay. She has awoken from her coma, and Picard's there, and he's like, I'm gonna have you arrested for killing Bruce Maddox. And it's kind of like, oh, that was harsh. But the second time I watched it, I'm like, maybe he was like going in that harsh so that she would admit to it.
Like an interrogation technique,
yes,
almost.
He's got the light shining in her face and all. He's bringing back his holodeck days of being a detective or whatever.
Oh, Dixon Hill,
Dixon Hill. I could not remember what his name was. I felt so terrible. She's like, I didn't want to do it. It was Commodore O and all this stuff. She put some sort of mental block on her to keep her from talking about it. And she showed her these visions. We weren't sure before exactly what vision she showed her, but she had to have shown her at least some of what the Jat Vash people saw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, she didn't, like, did she also implant in her, like, not to, like, kill herself before she was done with
Well, she should have forced mind meld on Agnes.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's really interesting because as we find out, O is half Vulcan, half Romulan.
Oh, yep.
And she has some traits of each race, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she doesn't have the inner eyelid. That's why the sunglasses were there. But she does have the ability to do mind melds. Forcing someone into a mind meld is so anathema to Vulcan spirituality that it's definitely against their tenets and principles.
But it's a very Romulan thing to do.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If they still had that power, or if, I don't know if Vulcans got that evolved after they split up or what.
Well, it's kind of explained in Enterprise that it's just like an offshoot, and they tried to suppress it for many, many years up until basically the original series happened.
Okay.
Only certain Vulcans were born with the ability to mind meld, and then it was just kind of pushed down, and the people who could mind meld were like a lower class and were just attacked constantly. But then once it became accepted, it became more common to have the mind meld ability.
So to Agnes, like, she was talking about how terrible it was, and she was like, "Do you believe in hell?" And I just loved Picard's face. Like, he's just like, no, not really. Kind of like that's sort of the face he made.
What's happening?
And she's just like, "Well, I didn't either, and now I think I do because that's what I saw." I still like can't get over the fact that she hasn't gone crazy because of the stuff that she saw. But I guess she killed her ex-boyfriend.
Well, and it's also through a third party. It's not like she was getting it direct. It was filtered through someone else's mind who'd already been able to process it.
That's probably.
And as far as Agnes goes, I don't know if anybody else has watched The Newsroom, but like Maggie is still having like the worst week ever, but in space.
Worst week ever.
Funny, I just started watching Devs, and she's on it as well.
Yes, I saw that she was on it. I haven't watched it yet.
She plays a very similar character.
Anyway, so, this vision of hell that she saw had to have been that admonition. I'm like, I can't read all of a sudden. So, this is what initiates the Zhat Vash into the Zhat Vash.
Yeah, and we see the image of Lieutenant Commander Ariam.
We see all that again. Mm-hmm. And again, I didn't pause it to see what it was. So thank you again, Neil, for for paying enough attention to things.
She has a very distinct look, and if you've seen Discovery, you would probably pick up on it really.
Right. Gotcha. So, they're talking about this and that it's awful, and she's trying to explain it, and then Soji walks up just in time to be like, "Yeah, that's the Seb Cheneb," which I still think Seb Cheneb is a ridiculous name.
It's stupid.
And it still sounds like you're slurring your words because you had too much to drink. You're sitting there on the floor by your bed, sulking about something and drinking, and you're just looking at old pictures going to Seb Cheneb. I just have to tie it all back into this episode. And do a callback to me talking about that before. So she's like, the Destroyer, that's me. Hi, I'm the Destroyer.
Yo.
Yeah, right. So then we end the scene there, and the next couple scenes, well, we sort of end the scene because the next two scenes are intertwined like they've been doing on some of the other ones, it kind of shows a little bit opposite, I feel like, of things happening, because we have Rios in his room, the record player's playing some Billie Holiday. He's got some good taste. We know that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and then Rafi comes in. She's just coming right on in. Like, listen here. She wants to explain to him everything that happened, and she wants to know from him what happened, and they have this big talk. She brought him a cup of coffee, like when he brought her coffee a few days ago in their time, which for us it was a couple weeks ago. We find out that there was a ship of a race that they'd never met before, so they were making first contact with these people, and they let Starfleet know. They beam aboard. It's a guy and a girl. The guy is named the Beautiful Flower, and the girl is named Jana. Here's our Jana, and she looks like Soji. I just assumed because his name was Beautiful Flower, they just picked their own names. But I like it. It's like, you do that, Jana's brother. You pick a cool name.
You do you.
Yeah. Maybe he was a beautiful flower. I mean, there's enough beautiful people in this show, I'd believe it. They made contact with these beings. Rios talks about how they run into these people, first contact with them, and that Captain Vanderveer has gotten a directive to murder them. Like, he's got to kill them. So then Rafi's like, because they were synthetic. Yeah, that's why. Because he got a call, and as soon as, he says that he got a directive from Starfleet to do that, it's like, oh, that was O.
Literally.
Like, literally, yes.
Oh.
And then she says, well, who was in charge? Commodore O. She was the head of security. She's the one that wanted to get rid of them. Then he really pressed him about it and really gave it to him. So much so that Vanderveer kills himself, just the way that Emmett had so wonderfully mimed. So unsensitively mimed. Then Rios just, like, covered up everything. Basically just said, yeah, he killed himself. I don't know why. It's sad. We didn't run into anybody. I don't know what you're talking about. He feels bad about that, and then he feels bad about Vanderveer because Vanderveer was his hero, like there's one point later where he's talking about he would imagine him being his father because it was just that close to it.
Caught himself from calling him Pops out loud a couple of times.
I know, that's what he said. That was so sad. Rafi, now she knows that these people were synths. She knows they have to be from the planet where Bruce Maddox had gone, and he made all of these synthetic people. So she's excited. She's on the right track. So meanwhile, it's cutting back and forth. The other part of the scene is Agnes and Soji. Agnes is asking all these questions, like, what do you do when you're hungry? Do you sleep? What do you do when you're thirsty? Like... It's like, you have freckles on your cheek, and birthmarks, beauty marks.
Android's dream of electric sheep.
Yes, exactly. And
I would have loved it if one of her dream sequences had an electric sheep.
Oh. Yeah!
Just like in the background,
Yeah, just walking across the screen once.
I'll take a unicorn too. I'll take some orange. Okay.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, so great. Agnes is like pressing her with all these questions. She's just like, oh, hey, and she's so excited. And she's like, oh, you're a wonderful marvel of technology. It's beautiful and everything. And Soji's like, I also got a mole on my chest and a janky pinky toe. Like, okay. I mean, she's asking for all that information, so I guess it's not too much information. She keeps, like, aggressively asking questions, and then Soji's like, so am I a person? Do you think I'm a person? And then she's all like, right now, standing here in front of you, am I a person? Kind of thing. And she kind of doesn't really answer. Maybe they filmed it where she answered, but they're sort cutting back and forth, and it's like there's sort of the juxtaposition they did of like their conversation was sort of light and asking a lot of questions at the beginning, and then it got like really more angry and aggressive at the end, whereas the other, we've got Rafi like breaking in the door and then just asking questions, and then they get like, oh yeah,
it's really tender. Yeah,
So
that's an interesting way to look at it. I didn't really think about it before, but it's a really good juxtaposition, as you said, of the two scenes. Like they both start on opposite spectrums and then kind of switch throughout.
Yeah, I like that it's something that they've used a couple times in this series, but I like that because when it's a heavier scene, it kind of breaks it up and it doesn't weigh you down as much, but you still get the emphasis that you were supposed to get. You're just not like bogged down by a lot of yelling or something.
Right. It's dramatic, but it's not like, as you said, super heavy.
Yeah, this isn't like Marriage Story or something. This is Star Trek. Like.
But it still gives the actors some room to kind of flex their dramatic muscles a little bit.
Yeah. And even editing it like that, because they've gone through the scene the correct way, it's, it works and you can still see their acting chops. Agnes is not answering her about if she's human kind of thing. Soji is like, Commodore O wanted you to kill me too, right? And Agnes is like... and and Soji's even like, because I wouldn't let that happen. It's like, oh no, what's going to happen? But then Agnes is like, no, I've met you now, and you're wonderful, and I'd never do that, I promise. She's just saying that because she's scared, because